welcome back to our channel. There's something magnetic about an old coin, something timeless. You feel it the moment you hold one, the way its copper glows softly beneath decades of dust, the faint whispers of history etched into its worn edges. Now imagine this, it's 1945. The world is standing on the edge of triumph and sorrow, hope and exhaustion. The Second World War is winding down, and with it, a generation of stories, told and untold, is being cast into the winds of time. In this very year, in the midst of global upheaval, a small copper coin is minted. Just 1 cent in face value. Humble. Overlooked. Yet, decades later, this single penny would captivate collectors and historians alike. This is the story of that penny. The 1945 wheat penny. Picture a young boy named Thomas in the early spring of 1945, just 11 years old. He's walking down a dusty street in St. Louis, Missouri, his shoelaces undone, his pockets filled with marbles, rubber bands, and a few copper pennies. One of those pennies, a new one, warm from someone's change at the corner store, catches his eye. It's shiny, almost too perfect. He flips it over and stares at the wheat stalks on the back, their arches symmetrical, the words, 1 cent, standing bold, proud. It was nothing special to him then, just a penny. But it would soon become a portal to a different world. Back in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, the presses were running day and night. Steel was for tanks. Copper was rationed but returned to coins after the 1943 steel experiment. In 1945, the Lincoln cent was once again made with a blend of copper and zinc. They rolled out millions, but not all were alike. Some bore the subtle quirks of a tired die, others struck slightly off-center. And a few, like the one Thomas would unknowingly carry in his pocket for years, emerged with microscopic anomalies that would one day make them incredibly rare. While the world celebrated the end of the war in Europe in May and braced for the final chapters in the Pacific, life in the United States moved forward. Factories shifted from making bombs to making cars. Soldiers returned home, streets filled with ticker tape parades, and radios buzzed with victory speeches. In this rush of change, no one was thinking about pennies. But they were there, quiet witnesses to history. The coin itself carried a legacy already decades old. The obverse bore the profile of Abraham Lincoln, a design introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of his birth. Victor David Brenner's design had become a national staple, and in 1945, it felt more poignant than ever. Lincoln, the great emancipator, was a symbol of unity, and in a country freshly shaken by war, his image offered reassurance. On the reverse, the twin stalks of wheat remained, nodding to the American heartland and the values of labor and prosperity, but it wasn't just the artistry of the coin that made it special. It was its story, how it survived, where it traveled, and the secrets it held in its composition and appearance. Most 1945 pennies passed through thousands of hands, ending up lost in jars, buried in backyards, or turned in at banks. But the rare ones, the few that slipped past unnoticed with minting errors, unique toning, or near-perfect preservation, began a silent journey toward greatness. One such penny was discovered by an aging coin collector named Harold in the late 1990s. A lifelong enthusiast with shelves of Lincoln cents, Harold had spent most of his life chasing the ghosts of minting mistakes and forgotten rarities. He wasn't rich. He didn't collect for profit. He collected for the thrill, the story, the mystery. On a quiet Sunday morning, as he sorted through an old cigar box from an estate sale, he spotted a 1945 wheat penny that seemed different. The color was richer. The rim sharper. The lines of Lincoln's suit, the edges of his jawline, crisp like the coin had just come off the press. But it hadn't. It was over 50 years old. Harold knew the signs of rarity. He examined the coin under magnification, compared it to known varieties, measured its weight, even tested its response to magnetism. What he discovered was extraordinary. The penny was nearly uncirculated. It had a full red hue, untouched by oxidation. And most striking of all, it had a doubling effect, barely visible, on the date and lettering. A possible double die, from a rare misalignment during minting. It was the type of flaw that made a coin not just rare, but desirable beyond belief. Word of this particular coin began to circulate in numismatic circles. Whispers grew into buzz, and buzz became obsession. Experts inspected it, authenticated it, and declared it one of the finest known examples of its kind. But Harold never sold it. He held onto it until the end of his days, telling anyone who would listen that coins were not just metal, they were memories. Echoes of time. After his passing, the coin passed into the hands of a young collector, and its legend only grew. What makes the 1945 penny so fascinating is how it bridges eras. It is both old and modern. It holds the gravity of war and the lightness of everyday life. It bought candy bars and war bonds. It lived in the pockets of soldiers and schoolteachers. And for collectors, it became a link to an age when the world changed forever. Some 1945 pennies are common, yes. Over 1 billion were minted between Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. But rarity isn't always about quantity. It's about condition. Error. Story. A perfect storm of history, preservation, and chance. And in those slim margins lies greatness. Each of the minting facilities, Philadelphia, which struck over 1 billion coins, Denver, which added over 266 million, and San Francisco, which minted more than 181 million, bore their own subtle signatures. Coins from Denver carried a small D mint mark beneath the date, and those from San Francisco a tiny S. Philadelphia coins were minted without any letter, yet each coin, regardless of origin, had the potential to hold a hidden rarity. Some had repunched mint marks, others bore off-center strikes, and some, like Harold's find, contained errors so subtle that only the trained eye could spot them. The 1945 penny also plays a crucial role in telling the larger story of coinage in American history. In the backdrop of post-war economic revival, the humble cent carried with it a reminder of thrift and purpose. During the war, families saved every bit they could: scrap drives, war bonds, victory gardens. Pennies were cherished, used for postage, payphones, candy, or even placed under loose floorboards as lucky charms. For the numismatist, the true value of a 1945 wheat penny lies not only in its rarity but in its condition. Coins graded MS 65 and above, mint state specimens that show full original luster and no signs of circulation, are exceedingly hard to find. They are like finding a letter from the past that was never opened, its ink still fresh, its paper still crisp. Combine such condition with an error like a double die or an off-metal strike, and you have a treasure unlike any other. Collectors around the world continue to search through their jars, drawers, and attic boxes in the hope of discovering their own version of Harold's miracle. It's a hunt driven by passion, by love for history, by the thrill of uncovering something that time forgot. And in this pursuit, the 1945 wheat penny stands as both relic and inspiration. And now, after decades of mystery, after surviving generations, after holding its secrets for over 80 years, one particular 1945 wheat penny has claimed its rightful place among the elite. With its flawless surfaces, remarkable error pattern, and preserved beauty that defied time itself, this single coin has reached a value that seems almost impossible for something so small, that 1 cent, is now worth $182,000. There's a kind of magic in the smallest objects. A single coin, copper-toned and barely an inch across, can carry more than its weight in memories. It can tell the story of a country reborn from war, of families rebuilding, of streets bustling with a new kind of hope. This is especially true of the 1950 USA 1-cent wheat penny, a piece of metal that was more than currency. It was a silent observer of a nation's rebirth and transformation. It begins in a year caught in transition. The Second World War had ended 5 years prior, but its shadow still lingered in the lives of everyday Americans. In 1950, Harry S. Truman was president. The Cold War had begun to frost over international relations. The Korean War was taking root. Amidst this backdrop of uncertainty, there was also growth. Suburbs began to spread like branches, the economy was strong, and baby boomers were growing up fast. In homes across the country, optimism was met with pragmatism, and every penny counted. In this climate, the U.S. Mint continued its mission of minting coins for a growing population. The Lincoln cent, bearing the steady, reflective face of the 16th president, was already an American staple. It had been introduced in 1909 and had become as familiar to the American hand as a firm handshake. By 1950, the design remained the same: Lincoln on the obverse, wheat stalks flanking the words 1 cent and United States of America on the reverse, a tribute to agriculture and unity. what made the 1950 penny stand apart was not its design, but the stories it would carry, the rarities that would emerge, and the few that would defy the odds to survive in pristine condition. Millions were minted, yes, but only a whisper of them would become legends. Consider a young girl named Eleanor, growing up in Akron, Ohio. Her father worked in the tire factories, and every Friday, he would give her a handful of coins to save in a mason jar. One day in late spring, she received a penny that gleamed a bit brighter than the others. Its rim was flawless. The profile of Lincoln caught the light just so. Eleanor tucked it away and never spent it. That coin, through years and generations, passed down through her family, would one day reveal itself to be something far more valuable than its humble face value. That penny might have come from Philadelphia, where over 272 million were struck without a mint mark. Or perhaps from Denver, which contributed a smaller batch of about 334 million coins bearing the subtle D mint mark. San Francisco, the rarest contributor that year, minted fewer than 119 million. All three mints, bustling with the energy of post-war America, used the same 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc alloy, just as they had in earlier years. But among these masses, the rare gems emerged, coins struck from fresh dies, with crisp edges and luster that seemed untouched by time. In Denver, the mint workers toiled under high demand. Their job wasn't just to create currency, it was to deliver reliability. Every press of a die into a blank copper planchet echoed with mechanical rhythm. Sometimes, in the haste of production or due to slight shifts in alignment, a coin would receive a double impression. These double dies are today the most sought-after variations. On some, the Liberty inscription appears slightly blurred, or the numbers in the date show a subtle but clear doubling. It's a minting quirk that turned an ordinary penny into a hidden masterpiece. Among collectors, a near-mythic reverence surrounds such coins. The 1950 wheat penny may appear common at first glance, but within that population are coins with double die obverse, repunched mint marks, and other small minting anomalies that elevate them to treasures. These errors weren't intentional, they were the product of human hands and machines working fast to meet demand. But they made all the difference. A collector named Robert found one such coin at a flea market in the early 2000s. It was buried in a cardboard box of junk change, selling for $1 a scoop. He didn't expect much, but his trained eye noticed the telltale signs, the doubling in the word liberty, the sharpness of the wheat stalks, the nearly perfect red tone of unoxidized copper. He took it home, studied it under magnification, and began to suspect he had found something rare. After months of examination and third-party grading, Robert's hunch was confirmed. His 1950 penny was a mint state specimen, graded MS 67 RD with a prominent double die. Only a tiny number of such coins are known to exist. Its color was full, its fields untouched by circulation. It was a time capsule. There's a quiet poetry in these coins, the way they pass unnoticed through generations, only to resurface in moments of rediscovery. Picture that coin again, in the palm of Robert's hand, glowing under a soft desk lamp. That coin had lived through more than coin counters and pockets. It had seen the rise of rock and roll, the advent of television, the beating heart of the civil rights movement. It had passed silently through hands at diners, bus stops, and movie theaters. But this one? This particular coin had stayed hidden. Preserved. Waiting to be discovered. Each of these coins, especially those in exceptional condition, serves as more than a monetary artifact. They are witness to America's mid-century soul, the post-war grit, the drive for innovation, the quiet dignity of day-to-day life. A penny like that tells a story no camera can capture. As time marched on, most 1950 pennies wore down. Their surfaces lost their shine. Their edges softened. But the few that survived in untouched condition, sealed away in bank rolls, forgotten in drawers, or cherished by sentimental families, gained value in ways no one expected. Then there are the stories whispered between coin dealers, of near-pristine coins exchanged in private collections, protected in temperature-controlled vaults, traded like fine art. These are the 1%ers, not in wealth but in preservation. They offer a rare window into history frozen in copper. So when a 1950 wheat penny of such rare distinction is finally recognized, when its surfaces gleam with the luster of a newly minted coin, and its subtle errors mark it as one of a kind, it becomes more than collectible. It becomes a legend, and one of those legendary coins, flawless, bright, and steeped in untold stories, has now been valued at an astounding $170,000. In the vast, humming machine of mid-century America, where industry met optimism and every small town pulsed with newfound energy, a humble coin emerged, one that would outlast presidents, wars, and entire generations. It was 1953, and the United States was at a crossroads. A new president, Dwight D. Eisenhower, had just stepped into office, carrying the gravitas of a five-star general and the hopes of a country still adjusting to post-war life. The echoes of World War II were still faintly audible, but the mood of the nation had changed. The sacrifices of war had made way for the promises of peace. The economy was booming, suburbs were expanding, and television sets flickered in living rooms coast to coast. On playgrounds, barbershop counters, and back porches, pennies clinked in the hands of children who knew little of their value beyond a piece of candy or a gumball. Yet, among those seemingly ordinary pennies, one from that year, small, coppery, and unassuming, would eventually ascend to heights no child, grocer, or even coin collector could have predicted. This was no ordinary 1-cent piece. This was the 1953 wheat penny, a coin whose quiet origin belied a destiny of greatness. The 1953 1-cent wheat penny, minted in the trio of cities, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, was a continuation of the beloved Lincoln wheat design that had defined the 1-cent piece since 1909. Lincoln's profile faced right, ever solemn, ever wise, a symbol of unity and strength in a changing world. Behind him, on the reverse side, stood two sheaves of wheat, standing proud, encasing the denomination with a nod to America's agrarian roots. This wasn't just pocket change. This was symbolism. Lincoln, the great emancipator, framed against the simplicity of wheat. It was a design that resonated with Americans who knew the value of hard work, community, and integrity. And in 1953, after decades of change and upheaval, that symbolism meant something deep. It meant remembrance. It meant progress. It meant hope. In that year, over 256 million pennies were struck in Philadelphia, bearing no mint mark. Denver contributed another 701 million with the subtle D. San Francisco minted just over 181 million. Together, they flooded the economy with copper coins, each a testament to a nation on the rise. But among these hundreds of millions, a whisper-thin sliver of coins emerged that would later baffle experts, thrill collectors, and rewrite the rules of numismatics. These were the coins that slipped through time untouched. Some were protected by collectors who knew what they held. Others were saved unknowingly, tucked away in jars, dressers, or deep inside old cash registers. And then there were the true anomalies, the coins struck with errors so rare and so distinct that they became instant legends. In a quiet town in Indiana, a young boy named Thomas was gifted a penny by his grandfather in the summer of 1953. His grandfather, a retired machinist with a meticulous eye, had a habit of saving coins that caught his attention. That particular penny gleamed with an almost surreal brightness. The fields, those flat spaces around the design, were mirror-like. The lettering was sharp. Even as a child, Thomas sensed this penny was different. He kept it, untouched, in an old envelope marked simply, "Keep safe." Years turned into decades. Thomas grew up, raised a family, and one day rediscovered that envelope tucked behind a bookshelf in his father's study. When he pulled it open and saw that penny again, it looked as if no time had passed at all. Still glowing. Still perfect. It would take another few years before Thomas realized what he had, a 1953 wheat penny in near-perfect condition, with a full red luster, barely touched by oxygen. That penny was eventually authenticated and graded at MS 68RD, a grade so rare, so pristine, that only a few examples could ever rival it. But it wasn't just the grade that gave it power. It was the story, the survival, the fact that it had never entered the world of circulation. It had waited, hidden away, as the country changed around it. Other such stories pepper the landscape of American coin lore. Some 1953 pennies have turned up with dramatic doubling on the obverse, where the date and lettering appear ever so slightly shifted, a telltale sign of a double die strike. Others have featured repunched mint marks, particularly from the Denver and San Francisco mints. These tiny flaws, invisible to most, make all the difference in the world to collectors. They are fingerprints of the minting process, moments where precision met human error and created something rare. And then there are the coins like Thomas's, perfect not because of error, but because of preservation. Their color is vibrant, classified as red, RD, in the numismatic world, meaning they retain nearly all their original copper brilliance. Fewer than a handful exist in such condition. These are coins never spent, never dropped, never pocketed. They are time travelers. Preservation is not a passive act. It requires intention, or, in the rarest cases, extraordinary luck. Temperature, humidity, handling, and even storage materials can alter a coin's surface and degrade its condition. For a 1953 wheat penny to survive in pristine red brilliance for over 70 years, all environmental odds must have been beaten. It's an act of fate, of unknowing guardianship. Every so often, one of these coins appears on the open market and makes waves. Not because of hype, but because of truth. Because the collectors who've spent lifetimes studying every detail of every minting year know how impossible such condition is. They know what it takes for a penny to survive untouched for over 70 years. It takes luck, care, and a bit of destiny. It takes a story like Thomas's. A gift passed down. A moment remembered. An envelope marked, "Keep safe." The 1953 wheat penny isn't just a coin. It's a witness. To the end of the Korean War. To the rise of rock and roll. To the birth of the interstate highway system. Every penny minted that year carries a bit of that energy. But the ones that remain in gem condition? They carry something more, a connection to the very fabric of American memory. They are the silent watchers of time. They remember jukeboxes in diners, the first edition of Playboy hitting stands, and the roar of V8 engines cruising down freshly paved roads. They remember a generation dreaming big and building bigger. They are the artifacts of everyday magic, and so, among millions, a few shine. Not metaphorically, but literally. Gleaming with a fire untouched by time. Protected by generations, revered by experts, and cherished by collectors. These are more than coins. These are legacies. One such 1953 wheat penny, minted with near perfection, untouched by circulation, graded among the highest ever recorded, has recently been valued at an astonishing $162,000. The year was 1954, a time when the rhythm of life in the United States was marked by post-war prosperity, emerging cultural shifts, and the steady hum of progress. Televisions were becoming fixtures in family rooms, Elvis Presley was on the brink of reshaping music, and Americans were finding a renewed sense of hope after decades of turmoil. In this time of boundless optimism, one small coin quietly entered circulation, unaware of the legacy it would one day carry. It was the 1954 Lincoln wheat penny, a coin as ordinary in appearance as it was extraordinary in story. At first glance, the 1954 1-cent piece didn't appear remarkable. It featured the familiar image of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, his noble profile turned to the right. Behind him, etched with precision and pride, the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the year, 1954. On the reverse, the two symbolic wheat stalks flanked the words, 1 cent, and United States of America, beneath the bold declaration, E pluribus unum. It was a design Americans had known and cherished since 1909, linking them not just to Lincoln's legacy, but to the values of hard work and perseverance that wheat so vividly represented. 3 mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, were responsible for striking the 1954 wheat penny. Philadelphia, the oldest mint in the country, produced over 71 million coins, bearing no mint mark. Denver contributed more than 251 million, its coins identifiable by a small d beneath the date. San Francisco, with its ever-watchful eyes on quality, issued a modest 96 million coins with an S mint mark. Altogether, these coins became a part of everyday American life. They were handed over at candy shops, dropped into jukeboxes, and saved in piggy banks, but among the sea of copper, a few coins broke the mold. Some were spared from circulation entirely. Others emerged bearing strange anomalies, misstruck dates, double dies, off-center designs, and repunched mint marks. These quirks, often caused by slight errors during the minting process, transformed mundane coins into treasures. What made these anomalies special wasn't just their rarity, but the stories they whispered, of the intricate machinery at the mints, of watchful inspectors who missed a single slip, and of sharp-eyed collectors who noticed what others overlooked. In the suburbs of Oregon, a man named Harold stumbled upon such a coin in the late 1960s. Harold, a retired postmaster, had a lifelong habit of scrutinizing the change he received. One quiet evening, while sorting through a small wooden box of coins he'd saved from over the years, he noticed a 1954 penny with a glow that set it apart. Its copper was untouched by time, vibrant with a reddish-orange luster. Its strike was razor-sharp, as if it had just left the dies. Most startling of all was the mint mark, a subtle, almost ghost-like doubling beneath the D. Unaware of its true rarity, Harold placed the coin back in the box, unknowingly preserving it in ideal conditions for decades. That coin, later authenticated by professional graders, was found to be in MS 68RD condition. This grade placed it in the absolute top tier of all known 1954 wheat pennies. Not only was its condition impeccable, but the coin's slight minting error made it a standout among collectors. It was an immaculate snapshot of the past, as perfect as the day it was made. Across the country, similar stories emerged. In dusty attics, inside forgotten drawers, or handed down from grandparents to grandchildren, a handful of 1954 pennies had managed to evade the wear and tear of circulation. Some, like Harold's, were identified as error coins, double dies, off-center strikes, or repunched mint marks. Others were simply preserved in such pristine condition that they stood as rarities by virtue of their survival alone. Each coin told its own story, yet they shared a common thread: resilience. The odds of a coin surviving over 70 years without losing its luster are slim. Factors like humidity, human handling, and air exposure typically leave even the most cherished coins with blemishes. But the finest 1954 wheat pennies defied these odds, shielded from time by careful hands or sheer luck. To collectors, these coins are more than objects. They are relics. They are proof that even the smallest details matter, that in a world constantly moving forward, something so tiny and overlooked can carry within it the echoes of an entire era. Each mint mark, each contour of Lincoln's face, each gleaming field reflects the craftsmanship and care of a bygone generation. Collectors seek not just rarity, but perfection. And perfection in coins is a rare alchemy of minting precision and historical preservation. That's what makes the 1954 wheat penny so compelling. It is not just a piece of copper. It is a survivor, a silent witness to Eisenhower's America, to rock and roll's birth, to the dreams of a post-war nation finding its footing, and within that legacy lies a deeper story, one of forgotten treasures hidden in plain sight. These are the pennies that jingled in overalls, that were taped inside birthday cards, that lay undisturbed in cigar boxes. These are coins that bear the fingerprints of history. The process of grading and certifying such coins only adds to their mystique. Professional graders pore over every millimeter under magnification. They examine luster, strike quality, blemishes, and signs of handling. Reaching a grade like MS 68RD is not just rare, it is exceptional. Out of hundreds of millions of pennies minted that year, only a handful can ever hope to attain such status. And once discovered, these coins are preserved with reverence, in archival holders, stored in climate-controlled environments, treated more like museum pieces than pocket change. Beyond condition, provenance plays a role in a coin's allure. Stories of their discovery, of the people who found and cherished them, of the journeys they've taken across decades, these elevate a coin's appeal beyond the physical. They create legend, and for the 1954 wheat penny, the legend continues. Numismatists from all walks of life seek it, not only as a rare gem for their collection but as a connection to history. Each time such a coin surfaces, it rekindles the thrill of the hunt for collectors around the world. Will the next coin roll contain a forgotten treasure? Could an heirloom box in a grandparent's attic hold a piece of numismatic gold? Every glint of copper tells a story. And the 1954 wheat penny, with its delicate imperfections and exquisite preservation, tells a story rich in heritage, surprise, and enduring value. A single 1954 wheat penny, preserved in mint red condition with a flawless strike and an exceedingly rare repunched mint mark, recently stunned the numismatic world. This particular example, authenticated, graded at MS 68RD, and recognized for its flawless presentation and subtle minting variants, now holds a value of an astounding $158,000. The year was 1957, a time when America was cruising through the golden age of prosperity. The post-war boom was in full swing, suburban life was flourishing, and the hum of optimism echoed across the country. It was the era of tail-finned Cadillacs, the birth of rock and roll, and backyard barbecues in newly built neighborhoods. Amidst the backdrop of this cultural renaissance, a tiny copper coin entered circulation, the 1957 Lincoln Wheat Penny. This coin, though small in size, holds within it a grand narrative of its own, a tale of endurance, quiet rarity, and unforeseen value. At the time, the penny was just a routine piece of currency, a humble carrier of commerce passed from hand to hand, dropped into gumball machines, or used to pay for a bottle of cola. Yet today, this unassuming coin stands as a beacon of numismatic intrigue and historical depth. The obverse of the 1957 penny bears the enduring visage of President Abraham Lincoln, etched with reverence, his gaze steady and solemn. Above his head arches the motto, "In God We Trust," while to the left rests the word "Liberty," and to the right, the year, 1957. The reverse side displays the iconic wheat ears design, flanking the inscriptions, 1 cent, and United States of America, all under the enduring phrase, E pluribus unum. This reverse design, first introduced in 1909, had become a symbol of the American spirit, a tribute to the hard-working ethos that Lincoln himself represented. 3 mints were responsible for the creation of the 1957 penny, Philadelphia and Denver being the main contributors. Philadelphia, without a mint mark, struck over 282 million of these coins, while the Denver Mint, marked by a small d beneath the date, produced over 1.05 billion. These numbers suggest ubiquity, so many coins, so little chance of rarity. But therein lies the twist. In the shadows of mass production, a few specimens escaped into the world with extraordinary conditions or peculiar minting anomalies, setting them apart from their countless siblings. The majority of 1957 wheat pennies, naturally, endured decades of wear. They lived lives full of utility, tossed into pockets, run through cash registers, and clinked together in change jars. Most were destined for tarnish and eventual replacement by the Lincoln Memorial Reverse, which would debut just 2 years later in 1959. But a few, a precious few, managed to avoid the grind of everyday commerce. Some were tucked away in coin folders by young collectors, safeguarded in drawers, or stashed by those who simply admired the gleam of copper. These fortunate specimens retained their original luster, the fiery red-orange hue known to collectors as mint red, RD. Even rarer were those that bore no blemish or handling marks whatsoever, maintaining flawless surfaces and perfect strikes. Then, there were the error coins. These coins, created by mechanical missteps during the minting process, became unexpected marvels. Some 1957 pennies emerged with double dies, where design elements like the date or lettering appeared subtly duplicated under magnification. Others revealed repunched mint marks, where the small d had been struck more than once in a slightly misaligned fashion. Still more featured off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or die cracks, giving each coin a unique fingerprint of its creation. These varieties sparked waves of fascination in the collecting world. Specialists devoted years to cataloging and studying each anomaly, often publishing their findings in coin journals and guides. For the trained eye, every detail mattered: the thickness of a stroke, the spacing of letters, the angle of a mint mark. Collectors became detectives, historians, and curators all at once, preserving not just the coin, but the story it told. Collectors, especially those with a keen eye and steady hands, began to identify these rarities over time. Among them was a young numismatist in Indiana, who in the 1970s inherited a cigar box of coins from his grandfather. Inside, tucked between a few buffalo nickels and mercury dimes, was a 1957 D penny with an unusually deep red hue. Its surface was immaculate. No scratches, no fingerprints, just pristine copper brilliance. Curious, he submitted the coin for professional grading. What came back was nothing short of astonishing: an MS 68 RD grade, placing it among the finest known examples. With this grade came value, and with value came recognition. The coin traveled from hand to hand, collector to collector, always protected in a clear holder, always admired but never spent. It became a symbol of what makes numismatics so enthralling: not just the metal, but the mystery; not just the age, but the journey. As the decades passed, more collectors began turning their attention to 1957 pennies, realizing that condition and rarity could transform a common coin into a prized artifact. The thrill of the hunt, of finding that one perfect piece hidden in a sea of circulation, only added to the excitement. From basement safes to estate sales, from childhood collections to inherited keepsakes, the search expanded. Grading became a crucial part of this process. Coins were evaluated under intense magnification, judged for strike quality, surface preservation, color, and overall eye appeal. Out of the hundreds of millions minted, only a minuscule fraction could hope to achieve top-tier grades. And fewer still exhibited both perfect condition and a unique error. These coins became more than just collectibles. They became storytellers. They spoke of the machines that struck them, the mints that produced them, the people who saved them. They carried with them echoes of 1950s America, of sock hops and soda fountains, of Cold War tensions and booming industry, of a nation on the cusp of enormous change. The 1957 wheat penny, for all its perceived commonness, emerged as a symbol of hidden potential. It reminds us that even in the most mundane objects lies the possibility of greatness. That even something as everyday as a penny can, under the right circumstances, become a link to history and a vessel of immense value. Today, collectors still dream of finding the perfect 1957 penny, one with the right luster, the right strike, maybe even a mysterious error. These coins inspire not just admiration, but imagination. They make us wonder what lies in the next coin roll, what forgotten piece of history might be sitting in a drawer, waiting to be rediscovered. Stories have emerged from flea markets and dusty attics, where curious hands uncovered forgotten jars and dusty coin albums. A man in Pennsylvania once discovered a 1957 wheat penny lodged behind the back panel of an old writing desk. It had been there for decades, preserved by sheer accident. When cleaned gently and graded, it revealed a beautiful sheen, another remarkable survivor. And for one such 1957 penny, the journey from a freshly struck coin to a graded masterpiece has culminated in a stunning reality. Preserved in mint condition, with flawless surfaces and blazing red coloration, authenticated and graded at MS 68RD, it now commands a value that defies expectations. Today, that extraordinary 1957 wheat penny is valued at a remarkable $150,000.